Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Inspired Voices. I am Oliver Riera, your host, and I am welcome today with the famous Estes Tarver.
I did not realize Estes was wearing the same colored shirt as me.
Why don't you tell everyone what you do?
I'm an actor and a director and a writer and a teacher. I'm the artistic director of Moonlight Stage Company. What else? I teach. I was a tennis pro for 20 years.
Yeah.
Before that.
Yeah. So you got a lot of things on your resume, that's for sure. In that case, I want to do something a little bit different with you because you do have so many things going on. I want to go back. So
Okay.
where were you born?
I was born in Lexington, Kentucky.
Kentucky. And you grew up there?
Yeah, I know. I grew up all over the place, which I think is part of the reason I got into what I got into later.
Right.
I was born in Lexington, and then I lived in Colorado and New Jersey, and then back to Lexington, and then we moved to Ohio from age 7 to 14. I was in Ohio, and then Alabama.
Now,
Huntsville,
what's
then-
with the moves with your dad in the
Yeah,
military?
my dad did a lot of he wasn't in the Army or anything. Everybody always asks if I was an Army kid, and my dad was just very ambitious, and if he got a new job with a different company, but it was a step towards where he wanted to go, we moved.
Wow.
And it's like at the time, you feel like you get yanked out of your life or whatever, but
Yeah.
I honestly I feel like I learned so much from all the moves, and it's such a how you look at it kind of thing.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, okay. So that's where you got your ambition from, is your dad. pretty
Probably a lot of it, work ethic, all that.
much. How did your mom take that? The old moves and everything?
She's awesome, man.
Yeah?
She was. It was
did she
hard
have a
for her
job?
at times. She was, she raised 4 of us. I have 3 siblings, and so she was mostly a housewife, and then, which is a job, I guess. I definitely.
Yeah.
My mom's awesome. My mom's amazing, but she has worked from time to time. Like we all were tennis players, so she worked at the tennis club and got our tennis bill down by working there.
Yeah.
She did things that were.
Oh, okay.
Gave her
One of
off the
those moms.
books money, and
Yeah, yeah.
and then or they traded it. It was sort of a barter. So she did a lot of that, and then the moves were hard for her, but she just rallied, and she knew it was the right thing to do. I think by the end of it, loved a lot of the places we lived.
Yeah. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
so four kids doing tennis.
Yeah, we were Alabama Tennis Family of the Year in
That's crazy.
1992.
Yeah.
We had to go to Birmingham, get our picture taken. Everybody was like,
That's hilarious. Did you guys have the same outfit on?
No, no. We were all like, I was a senior in high school when that happened. So my older sister lucked out and didn't have to go because she was already in college. But my younger sister, my younger brother, and my parents drove down to Birmingham. There was this picture in the Alabama Tennis Association magazine of the Tarvers.
Was the whole tennis thing like? Because all of you guys did it.
Yeah.
Was it a follow thing? Like, he's doing it, I want to do it. Kind of thing?
Well, maybe some, because we were all introduced to it. Well, my mom started playing. She was the first one of us to play, and she started playing.
Oh, okay,
when
so you got it from your mom. Got it.
Sort of, yeah. But she was pregnant with my little brother, and playing up through till she was like 9 months pregnant, playing doubles and doing all that stuff. And then we loved the instructors, the tennis pros. They were the most fun guys, and like we all kind of got to know them, and so it was like a no-brainer. And then we moved to Ohio right around when she had my brother, and tennis was cheaper there than it was in Kentucky. It was more expensive where we were at the country club that my mom played at. So she couldn't afford to give us lessons there. And then when we moved, she was able to do it, and we, the pros were just awesome guys, and we all started playing.
Yeah. Did you meet a lot of pros like early on in your career of tennis?
Well, no, the tennis pros were like there was mainly the guys at the club that we played at. They were like the 4 instructors there, and it was they were all tight, and so it's like you go in there and they all yell your name when you walk in, and they're all buddies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like Moonlight, where people know all the teachers. It's the same kind of environment like that.
Okay.
So
That's cool. So you did that for how many years?
Oh gosh, I paid for college on tennis. So I started when I was 7.
Yeah.
And then.
Wow. And then just all the way through.
And then it was my day job as I started being an actor in my 20s. I taught until I was about mid-30s.
Yeah.
34, 35. I started doing all acting. And
What was the hardest part about tennis?
Oh wow. The different element for me, the heat was like learning to focus and fight through hours of being in Alabama in the sun when I was 15.
Right.
And it's 97 degrees, 104 degrees, and humid in the South. Like the discipline of all that, the mental discipline, and the focus you have to learn how to have.
Right.
With something like tennis, because a point may have 30 shots in it, and you have to be. If you zone out for a second, you're going to miss because the ball's moving.
Right.
So it's like learning all that stuff, which is great later for all the stuff I do now. My concentration is.
Exactly. I was going to ask you that. Like, did you know beforehand or like going through it that it would help you out?
No, like
the
the
future?
things that tennis has done for me in my life are. You realize them, I think, after. People always tell you sports is so great for you for discipline and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself in something and you look around the room at the people who have not played sports and you see all the things you learned from sports.
Yeah.
And go, wow, I'm surprised they can't focus that long or whatever. And you go, oh, no, I've had like extreme training in this that I didn't realize. you know?
Right. Yeah.
And when I started acting, a lot of teachers were like, wow, your concentration's really, really great. And I was like, oh, I think that's they were like, yeah, it's
From being
gotta
in
be
heat.
from an athlete. Yeah. And like I went in, when I studied with Joan, who was my mentor, she's an Emmy-winning director and directed Mary Tyler Moore and MASH and first female director in Hollywood television, really. When I came in, she found out I was an athlete and she goes, oh my God, athletes make great actors.
Nice.
And that was her first. I was like, oh, good. that's a good thing.
Yeah. I'm going to step up. Okay.
I'm trying to get into this. Yeah. But yeah. And I think I see it all the time. And there's things I realize I assume sometimes that people can do because to me, it felt innate, even if it wasn't, it was from my tennis, and I realized later, you're assuming something you shouldn't there. You need to teach them that,
Right. Right. So what was because I know you toured a lot with the a tennis group. Was
you
it
play
college?
with with your college team, you travel all over the place and play, all over the U.S. mainly.
Yeah. Okay.
In junior tennis, it can go all the way through to the junior Grand Slams and all that stuff. I traveled mostly in the U.S. as a kid.
Gotcha.
And you basically play tournaments, and there's tournaments you qualify for that are farther away. So you'll go in and get into nationals, and nationals is in Florida or Kalamazoo, Michigan, or wherever, and regionals is in Mobile, Alabama, or wherever.
Gotcha.
So you travel based on that kind of stuff.
When did you start traveling international?
Oh, I didn't do much international as a tennis player.
I thought you did.
No, my best friend was 40 in the world, and maybe like the top 15 guys in the country.
Yeah,
I was like top 150. The top 15 guys in the country. Oh, I know what you're saying, but the top 15 guys in the country were like on the U.S. national team.
Okay.
So like they went and traveled all over and played dual matches against other countries, like Davis Cup. They have Junior Davis Cup, and Davis Cup is, if you watch on the tennis, you'll see it's like the kind of an Olympic kind of thing. It's not the Olympics, but it's that kind of deal with pro tennis.
Yeah.
And they have junior versions of that and all that. What happened? I was the only American on my college team.
Okay.
Which is, I think, what you're thinking about.
Yeah.
And so there were guys from Finland, Chile, Brazil, Germany, Israel, Finland, and
was that the first time that you really experienced different cultures?
Man, it was such a crazy freshman year for me because I was 6 years younger than everyone on my team, and I was also the only American. There I am. So it's all good. So because I was the only American and I was younger, it was an interesting, I was the freshman big time. Yeah. And there were other freshmen, but they were 24. And they were like, I'm not a freshman, because some of them would come to college after playing a lot of tennis all over the world. And then what's interesting is getting a scholarship as an American in tennis can be very tough in Division I. That's like I was the only American on my team. And it's because you get those top Americans, and then you can go get the number one guy in Finland who's dying to study in the U.S. and get a business degree in the U.S. and he's a good tennis player. Yeah, he's a number one guy in Finland. Like, you're going to take him over the number 87 guy in the States, possibly, who's worked hard. And so
that's where the politics come in.
Politics come in, and it's like, but it's like, for me, like, it was an awesome experience. Like, I'm still good friends with those guys.
How was it? Like the first time you met those guys? Because it's culture shock for
you.
It's
such a culture shock.
So like, what was were you like overwhelmed by it?
Yeah, well, the main things I was overwhelmed with was like a lot of them, they learn they all spoke very good English, or 90% of them spoke very good English. But they all learned all the swear words, all the stuff like that's like some of the first stuff they learn. And so like there was a lot. Like I had come from middle class white family, going into craziness. 4 guys from South America, a guy from Finland, Germany, and Israel, and I was like, whoa, this is more of this kind of language that I'm used to. And I came back at Christmas, and my buddies were like, Estes, what's wrong with your mouth, man? And I was like, sorry, man.
Did you have an accent or something?
I was cussing. Every now and then I would have weird expressions, and they were like, what's going on, man? I was like, oh, and they were awesome guys, and they weren't distasteful, but you also see cultural differences in like how they flirt with girls.
Right, yeah, that's true.
Like a lot more whistling at girls, stuff like that made me embarrassed, because I was like, a
lot of like soap opera, romantic type of things that they do. Right?
And then like just literally like if they saw somebody they liked, they just yell at them, which there's nothing wrong with that. They were just having fun.
It's something they do in their country.
Yeah, exactly. And I was always like, whoa, shut up, you guys, what are you doing?
That's catcalling, guys. That's not acceptable.
Yeah. And I was like, and they were like, Estes, relax. And then after a while, I was like, yeah, it's fine. You're just having a good time, and they're not being disrespectful. They're just telling her she's hot. But it was at times I was worried it was catcalling or whatever, but it was interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. Because I'm sure they took you like out to try different foods.
It was awesome. And then sometimes they would make stuff, and so I got all kinds of.
You remember any of the food that you had?
Well, I hadn't eaten much of anything, so I had a lot of like, I guess, like what I think is considered Panamanian, like a curry chicken kind of thing that was really good. That one I'm used to make, that I was like, never had curry at all. Yeah. And I was like,
oh, really?
I hadn't. Yeah. Wow. And
you're really an American.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I very much. My house is like the Cleavers, man. And then, and then we just, we ate Mexican food a lot, which I love. It's my favorite food now. I probably eat Mexican 2-3 times a week now.
That's
Mexican
true. It's good, man. Especially the hot chips that come out.
Yeah.
Get that.
And
get that queso.
Good queso. You forget it. Forget about it.
And all right, cool, awesome. So you went through college. You did all that. What was the shift? Why the shift from tennis to acting?
I think I just didn't know till late that I wanted to do it. Like I went back and watched as I was starting to realize. I'll tell you, I saw A Few Good Men when I was a sophomore at Southern Miss playing tennis. Yeah, I was with one of the guys on my team. And he was so pumped when we were watching the courtroom scene, and the audience started. It was one of the what I think about that movie is so great because it actually got rounds of applause in the movie theater, which people were screaming and yelling and pumped when Tom Cruise was drilling him in the court scene. But my buddy that I was with jumped up and screamed, "Get him, Tom!" at the top of his lungs. And I just remember sitting there, and I was in this kind of removed place, and I was starting to realize that I wanted to be in these movies, and I thought I was being ridiculous at first. And then I realized later, maybe you just want to be an actor. Maybe you want to tell these stories. Like, and I was a shy kid, afraid of my shadow. So like, if you, like I talk to the kids I teach now, and I'm like, I wouldn't have been caught dead in here at your age. I would have run. Like, you tell me at 15 I'm going to take an acting class, I would have laughed at you and ran. Yeah. And been like, no way.
Being in front of people like that.
Oh, man, I was such a shy kid. Yeah, I got that from my dad, too. My dad was really shy.
Yeah, I got that from my dad.
Yeah. So anyway, I was watching that movie, and I remember talking to I was back home at my family's for Christmas, and I was talking to one of my best friends who was a girl that I was good friends with who I knew she wouldn't talk. I was very scared of saying it out loud, and I knew she wouldn't say anything to anybody about me saying it. Right. So I said, do you think it'd be ridiculous if I became an actor? And she sat there and thought for a minute and legitimately gave it its due attention as a good friend and said, no, I could totally see that. I never thought of that. And I was like, really? And it was kind of validating just to hear that response back. Yeah. And I still didn't touch it until my senior year of college. I took a class my last semester and did one monologue and was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I had zero doubt in my head at that point. And then I started. That's when I started I finished school, was teaching tennis at a country club in Memphis, the University Club, the summer after I graduated.
Right.
And then at the end of the summer, the pro that I was working for, mid-July, he goes, "What are you doing in the fall?" And I said, "I have no idea." And he goes, "Well, would you want a job teaching college ball? If I refer you, I got a good friend who's a head coach, and I think you'd be great. He'll take you if I refer you. He's my best friend." And I said, he goes, "So think about it. Make sure it's something you would want to do." And then like the next day I came back and said, "Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I need a job,
Right.
you know, at least for a year. I'd love to do it." And so he calls the guy, and it was he was the head coach at Tennessee Tech in Cookeville, Tennessee, which is where my parents were moving the same weekend they told me I needed to be there.
Really?
Total coincidence.
Wow.
Yeah. So I called my parents and was like, "I just got hired to coach at Tennessee Tech in the fall." And they said, "What? Oh my God, you're going to be in Cookeville. Oh my God, this is so great." You know? And I was like, yeah. And so I went, and I was still not, I was like, I knew I wanted to do it, but I still wasn't figuring out a path to get to it. I wasn't taking it.
Even though you did that monologue and you said you wanted to do
even
it,
though I knew I
gotcha.
loved it. I was about to go to medical school, and I stopped that train because I knew that was not, I started to go around with doctors a lot and realized that I just didn't love science. I had 4 O's. I was like cranking the books and playing tennis. And then I was going around with doctors like, I don't think I love science. And for me, like I liked other aspects about the job, but I was like, I think I need to love the science. If I'm going to be a doctor, I want to be so good at the science that I never
You were just
screw up.
intrigued by the idea of it.
Yeah, and I think I really wanted to be on ER, which is you know,
Such an actor.
yeah. I think deep down I was like, I think I just want to be on that show. I don't really want to do the ER doctoring. And then anyway, so
what was the first step that you did after that?
so
Acting?
I was starting to coach and taking a grad class at Tennessee Tech, and I was getting free class and getting a small stipend.
Free acting class?
No, free. I was
Oh, you
taking.
were giving
I could
free
take.
acting classes.
No. I could take classes at the grad school.
Okay.
And then I took. I was a psych major with a pre-med focus in college, so I was still getting rid of the med school idea, but I was still trying to sort of make sure of all of my decisions. So I took a a cognitive psychology class my first semester while I was coaching the team.
Right.
And then a biochem class. And so I took 2 classes because I could take them for free. And I was studying the biochem, and my dad is a whiz at all that stuff and was an electrical engineer and was massively brainiac about all that stuff. And he came by the table, and I was frustrated and tired and bored. And I said, "Dad, can you just explain this page to me like I'm in 2nd grade? I just need to get past this page." And I was like on this page, and he read it, and then he looked at me. And my dad had been the one who was a little like, "Don't jump into being an actor right away. You've been making 4 O's. Let's not just jump into that decision really quick." And
Right.
and I was I had a little bit of head-to-head with him at first. He was the only one he kind of just didn't get that part of me yet, I don't think.
Yeah.
So he was the only one. My mom was like, I said, "Go watch some interviews." I'd been watching interviews of Clint Eastwood and Robert Redford, and they all talked about being quiet, younger, and daydreamers. And I think I was so doing that as a kid because I was shy. I daydreamed. I was afraid to talk to people, so I played in my head.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of it came from. But she watched some of those interviews, and she was like, "I totally see it. I totally get it." And she said, "I see that." She said, "You're so like these guys. You need to." And she was instantly behind it. My dad was never discouraging it, but he just didn't get it.
Yeah.
So then,
And what age was this?
so this was the year after college.
Oh, you're after college.
Yeah. So so then I was reading that biochem book, and it's the first time he entertained it. I told him, "Explain this page to me like I'm a 2-year-old or whatever." And he read it, and then he looked at me and he said, "If this is this hard for you to dig into, you need to go do something else."
Oh, interesting.
And I took that.
Kind of like calling it out.
Yeah. And I took that as maybe I should be thinking about this other part of you and trying to help you, push you towards it without saying, "Go be an actor," because he still wasn't like pumped about it. But so it took him actually a couple years. I went and found an acting coach in Nashville. I was an hour and a half out of Nashville. She helped me get my first agent. I started auditioning. I did like country music videos and stuff like that. The first 3 years I was doing stuff.
Right.
And I remember the first audition I went on ever was for a music video. And I was the first TV film audition. I actually did a play while I was coaching I did Midsummer Night's Dream. I squeezed it in while I was coaching the team, which was crazy. I was driving everywhere, and I figured out the schedule would work because the conference tournament was over right as we started the show and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And but so I had done that play, and I was starting to have a little more confidence about pursuing it. I had been working with this acting coach and going to Nashville some, and then I got my first audition was for a music video, and man, I just choked like a king.
Really? What did they have you do?
It was an improv, and I hadn't studied improv at all, and it was like improvise something with. It was improvise a fight with your girlfriend, and I don't think she had done any improv either. So we got in there and we're just both leaving each other hanging left and right, and I'd throw something out that would be considered a gift now to play off of from what I know about improv now, and she would deny it and then make me come up with something else. I would say, and they were like, we got into this awful debate. And I just remember leaving the audition, cringing to myself, going, "What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing?" And then driving back to Cookeville in my car, going, "Oh my God, maybe I shouldn't be an actor. What am I doing?" Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then over time, I just, and then
how'd you deal with it?
I just, it always trumped my want to do it. Always trumped everything else. I love it. I love the work.
You just came back to that.
Yeah, and then you get for me, I go, what I've learned about auditions when if I had it's so different now with taping. Like you don't have a horrible 2 seconds in there.
Yeah.
Or when you do, I think the training's better now through the taping that you're better prepared to go in there because you've been able to work the material once already and in a taping scenario. So you know how it looks on film when you go in there. But I would leave, and what I always found was the minute I got my next audition, I didn't care anymore.
Okay.
I'd be analyzing the audition. Overanalyzing now, especially. I tell actors all the time now, don't think about it. You did it, leave it, go to the next.
Right.
And now I look back on that and I go, yeah, I used to do all that stuff, and then when I got that next audition, I was like, okay, something else to focus on besides what I've already done.
Yeah.
So it's like learning to go find that next thing. And now we have Actors Access.
Did it take that next project for you to forget it, or did it just take you a while?
I think at first, like it was like it would take me a while unless I got another audition.
Right.
And then if I got another, like I actually was up to play opposite Jessica Biel in a movie years later when I was 26, and it was a huge part in a film that was down to 2 scripts, and if they went with script A, I was going to be playing one of the main characters, like an ex-boyfriend of Jessica Biel's, and it was a 2 guys and a girl movie.
Yeah.
And if they went with the other script, it was going to be something else. The part was a one-scener, and they were going to cast a different type for that.
Gotcha.
So I didn't get it, and was devastated. And then 2 days later, I got another audition, and I was fine.
Yeah.
And I was like, and that movie would have at the time I was 25, that movie would have paid for a year of everything and gotten me possibly some other good opportunities.
Right.
I look back on it now though, and I honestly, like, I don't think there are certain things I'm not sure I was ready for as an actor. I'm kind of, part of me is glad I didn't get it because I went and trained and did so much more. And I feel like now when those opportunities come, I'm much better prepared. And if something bigger comes from it, as a craftsman and a professional, I'm going to be able to handle it and be fine,
Yeah.
Whereas then I think I was younger.
Right.
So
did you always find find that training would always help? So you took that from your tennis train, right?
Even if it's not at our place, like I'm not trying to sell you Moonlight Stage Company, but
does that come from your tennis?
Yes. And it comes from Denzel Washington. Right?
Straight from the man.
Go watch Man on Fire. It's in the script, but you can tell when he says it that he means it. Is he says there's 2 kinds of people, trained and untrained. Which one are you? If you can answer that untrained and you want to do what you're into, go get trained. It may be, and I think the things with acting that are misleading is there's a lot of training that is not good training, and that can lead to bad habits and everything else. So like if you're seeking acting training, like go look at the bios, go look at the resumes, go look at what's coming out of the school. If you're seeing, this place is getting good results for actors, they're getting opportunities, they're doing this, versus these guys all tell me they know what they're doing, but I don't see anybody really doing anything. Well, that's like any other job. You wouldn't go study medicine from people who aren't doctors.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so you want to
Now,
study.
what about those people that say that, oh, well, I could just get my training as I'm getting the experience? What do you say to that? Though?
Well, I think some of that has a lot of value. I think yeah, on the job training is wonderful, and at the same time, like with things like acting, like you're only going to get these glimpses, you know. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a lot of natural talent and you book a show right out of the gate and you're on camera all the time and people are guiding you, you're going to pick up a lot. That's the one in a million. But you know, what I find is two things. Sometimes people start getting work and then stop training, which I see a lot.
Yeah.
And then lots of times those people later stop acting. And they get out there and realize, whoa, I had a lucky break here, and then I didn't get any other work. Well, maybe that's because you got more auditions off of that job, and people saw that you weren't trained,
right?
Or they may not know it's a lack of training. They sometimes just think you can't act.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, because there's a lot of people in the business that didn't train as actors. So an actor walks in that's maybe untrained, and they just go, oh, untalented. And I go, well, that's a different thing. You know, I think everybody has talent. I think talent is the natural things you bring to something, and everybody has different versions of that. So it's like, how do I use what I bring to be a good actor? How do I use the things that I have that will work well in the field I want to be into? You know, and to me, everybody has qualities that are that. So like that's, as a teacher, I try to find, okay, what are the things about this person that will make them a strong actor? Let me learn how they learn. Let me learn what they're about and try to foster that.
Yeah.
And that tends to work a lot across the board. But I think with acting and training, like it's like anything, like, you know,
you just gotta work it.
Yeah, you got to work. And if you're working, you're getting some other training too. And if you're not working, you're not working.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, what I think too is like the actors that really love it, part of the reason they go train is just so they get to act.
Right.
Like, why do I take a class? Well, I get to act one night a week.
Yeah, that's why I do it too.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason, at least.
Yeah. And then you also look back and go, and I'm getting better. Wow, I see that. Or I picked up a little thing tonight that I think is going to help me if I'm in a high pressure situation where I don't know what to do.
Yeah. And then once you start learning, and then you start to gain that experience, so you could get better prepared for when you do get that.
Yeah, exactly.
gig.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when was your first, what was your first major, like,
my first
gig, I guess?
My first acting job that I got paid for, which to me was major, was an industrial. I got paid $250 to be in this. It was for Baptist School Board, and it was like a war scene in a foxhole at night, and they sprayed us with like the sugary sweat stuff.
Oh, really?
I thought it was amazing.
That must have been fun.
I thought it was just, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it, you know? And what's really funny and interesting though is I got the job, and then I was so excited. I'd gone in an audition, and then I got the script, and you know, I'm not Baptist. And I read this script and was like, man, this isn't, I have nothing against the Baptist faith or denomination at all, but it's not mine. And there are things in there that aren't what I grew up with. And so I'm sitting there with my dad, who has started to be practically supporting me a little more as an actor and supporting what I'm doing. And I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this, and he goes, Estes, let me ask you a question. He goes, if you don't do it, is somebody else going to do it? And I said, yeah, probably. And he goes, so then they're going to make their thing and put it out, and it's going to go out, right? I said, yeah. And he goes, well, then why don't you go get some experience, make a little money, and learn something? And I said, yeah, that's probably a good idea. And he goes, and aren't you there to tell their story for them? Or are you telling your story? And I said, I'm telling their story. And he goes, that's right.
He seems like a very practical man.
He's a very practical man. He said, if you were doing a job for me, I'd expect you to do what I needed you to do. That's why I'm hiring you. Yeah. And I was like, I need to think about acting like this all the time. It's made me a much more productive, practical actor, because anytime I have a question now, I go, well, how would this happen in any other job?
Right.
And it makes me get practical and smart, you know?
It seems like you thought about the business aspect of in acting before the acting portion of it, I guess you could say. Like some people, a lot of people actually, they just concentrate on acting, but they don't concentrate on the business portion of it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I don't know, I got better at the business side of it as I got older. At the same time, I think I always was aware of it and learning. I wasn't very self-aware in terms of what I could get and what I could do. Even after I started getting some stuff, I didn't look at it and go, "Oh, that's an Estes part." That's not. That part I was slow to evolve on. I'm much better at that now, and it makes me less frustrated when there's certain things I don't get an opportunity for. I go, I wouldn't cast you in that either, Estes.
Yeah, I think if you're not like a character actor type, then obviously it's not.
It's going to change and everybody your type is going to. I think there are times when it falls into character work for your type, and times when it falls into leading man work, or whatever the phrase is. And it's like everybody's is different,
Yeah.
And so where those things collide, that's especially in film and television, that's the area you're going to work a lot. And then if you go get famous and get a name, they'll look at aging you 50 years and doing a role or whatever you want to try to do, because they have millions of dollars and can hire a makeup artist that would do that. Johnny Depp played Tonto in The Lone Ranger, and he's Johnny Depp.
And most of his movie, pretty much.
Yeah, and now because if you go back and look when he was coming up, he did Johnny Depp type roles. Now he mixes it up because he can. And he's proven himself to everybody as an actor who can accomplish that.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. So after Tennessee, you moved to UNC. You went to UNC?
Right? I knocked around in the market for.
Is that when you were in the Brad Paisley?
Yeah. That was.
What song was that?
It's called "He Didn't Have to Be."
He Didn't Have to Be.
Yeah.
So check that out. He Didn't Have to Be. Yeah. Brad Paisley. You'll see Estes Tarver as a
young buck, 25. I was about 25 then.
Wow, 25.
Yeah,
definitely check. I'll post a video. I'll put it in the description.
I did a string of. I also did a Billy Gilman video called Oklahoma, where I was another young dad. Okay. And but that Brad Paisley video, man, it got Video of the Year. It was on the CMTs and the CMAs. And
I'm sure everyone recognized you.
Yeah, it was in Nashville, and then I bartended
especially in Nashville.
Yeah, yeah. When I bartended in a country bar, so like we had a big jumbo screen.
Yeah,
and the thing came on, and my video, and I was the lead in the video, so I was on the screen a bunch, and I'd be back there bartending, and guys would come up and they wouldn't tip me because they were like, "You don't need my money, man." And I was like, "Yes, I do. I didn't make a lot of money. It was a non-union video, And they were great acting jobs. They weren't a lot of money, but they were great acting jobs at the time.
Yeah, but then that song won a Grammy, right?
That song, I don't remember. Yeah, the song I think won a Grammy. He won Best New Artist that year. That song was number one on the countdown for a while. It was number one on the video countdown for forever. I don't even remember, at least like 15, 20 weeks. Yeah. But it was it was funny. But it got me because I was doing modeling work also, because my acting coach said, "Hey, you're 6'1", you're in good shape. Go model with an agency that does both, and they'll start sending you out as an actor also, because they're going to take you as a model." I know, which is good advice at the time for me. So I went in and did some stuff like that for a year or so, and then I got that video, which was non-verbal, non-speaking acting. So it's models get that stuff too. And then once you open your mouth, you need to have some acting ability. That's what I learned,
Yeah.
But I did that, and then they started sending me on more acting auditions, commercial auditions, and then I started getting more opportunities.
Gotcha. So the ball just started rolling.
Yeah, that video really helped. Yeah, and then the first television job I did, I also had an agent in Atlanta, and at the time those markets were very separate. Now the Southeast is one big market,
right?
But because of the technology, it's much easier to communicate across those cities. But back then, it was all Nashville's its own market, Atlanta, and Cincinnati. And I had an agent in Cincinnati, Nashville, and Atlanta, and I put 100,000 miles on my car in a year going to auditions. And I started to get a lot of auditions because I had 3 different agents, and I was willing to drive.
Was there ever a time where you're like, I don't want to do this?
Oh yeah, I mean, there were days I didn't want to drive for sure, man. But I always wanted to. But I was always genuinely motivated to get the opportunity. So like, there were days I was tired in the car, but again, like, what's that thing? You want to succeed, like as bad as you want air.
Breathe,
yeah, as bad as you want to breathe. And for me, like, that's the love of the work, I think, because it's a 20-year, for most people, it's a 20-year boil to really get working. And not everybody, but most actors, it's not because they didn't, some people might become great actors in 5 to 10 years of working at it and getting experiences and doing all those things. But the business is a slow business because you have to go get an opportunity that you're right for, where they will cast you because you're right for it over somebody that might have a bigger resume than you.
Right.
And then you go around, you get that part, you do it, it's 3 lines, you go back in the tank for another year and then get another part.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like most people, if you look at their IMDb's, which I used to do a lot to remind myself, like you'll see a lot of, for the first 15 years they were an actor, I'm seeing 1 job a year on IMDb. You know, or sometimes a 2-year gap, or, you know, and then all of a sudden they get one and you'll see an episodic where they did 9 episodes or whatever.
Right.
And after that, 2 a year, 3 a year, 8 the next year.
Yeah.
Now you go, they got in the business, but you have to be willing to grind out that long.
Did you know that? It seems like you always knew that it was going to be a long-term thing.
Yeah, I did.
Short-term.
Yeah, I think the reason I picked it is I think the tennis taught me that I wanted to do something that was competitive and an adventure, and I'm a variety guy. I can't get into something
that
day-to-day.
challenges you too.
Yeah, and I mean just the variety of stories and jobs. Like if I was punching in the same time every day, I'd go crazy. It's just not my.
Yeah.
I can't do the repetition. I need the constant.
Yeah. People
variety.
who are very creative need that.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So like that was, I looked at it and was like, the other part of it that was nice is I saw tennis when I was finishing college going, do I want to try to do anything more with tennis, or am I done with this? And I started to see that I wanted to do the acting, and I realized, you know, tennis you can really do till you're, if you go all out at it, even as a teacher or as if you try to go pro, all those things like mid-30s to late 30s, like your body is done, man, in a different way. You can't, like I look at, you know, great coaches that I know that are older and they don't hit as much, and I didn't want to be that coach. I know great coaches like that. It's not to say that that's not, you know, they'll go get a kid to come hit with the kid they're coaching while they coach too. Right. And I was just like, I'm not going to enjoy this part of the process. And I looked at acting and was like, acting is something I can do till I'm 100.
Yeah.
And as long as I can remember the damn lines when I'm 95,
right.
I can keep going.
Right.
You know, everybody loves a good, fun, older actor. There's a lot of character work, you know, and I know actors that were leading men younger that became character actors older because they have so much flavor from life that they've acquired, you know, but
interesting.
But that was one of the things that I loved about it is I was like, I can do this forever. And I love it. I just knew I was never going to get tired of it. I knew the variety of the stories was always going to interest me.
Right.
So I was like, I think this is the right road to head down.
Right. So talk to me about your UNC days.
So
that was a big step in your life, right?
Oh yeah, totally. It was.
You were living in.
So I went from Cookeville to. I checked out New York for a little while, and then I went to LA.
Right.
Because I liked the weather and teaching tennis. Much better day job out there, and like the South is so humid and hot. I went to LA and taught for 5 hours and barely sweat. And I'm a sweater. Yeah. So like in the South, I got to hydrate really well or I cramp. Right. All these things that day to day get really old. Yeah. And then in LA, I didn't have to. It was great. Nice. But I got out there. I started teaching more. I got a good little teaching business going out there. I got an agent. I was knocking around for 2 or 3 years. I had good. I was taking it to a studio out there that I really liked called The Shop. That was Andrew McGarrian was the teacher. And he taught a lot of young people, but he also taught some older actors. And I was early mid-20s, and he had a good group of those guys. Yeah. And I got to work in class with like Adam Brody and Evan Rachel Wood was in my class. You know, so and there's a lot of people that I recognize on the screen now that came through there. Jonathan Tucker, who I'm a big fan of. He was the lead in Kingdom on Showtime.
Oh yeah. That's a great
and,
show, man.
And I got to work with him some in class. He's a super nice guy, and
didn't he give you some advice?
Well, he just when I left LA, he just told me not to quit acting, that I was a good actor, which meant a lot. He just left me a voicemail. He said, "I heard you left town. Nice. Don't quit doing what you're doing, man," which was really nice. It was inspiring for me. But also, he was younger than me. I gave him a tennis lesson, but that's what I remember at one point too. And just a super nice guy. And then. So I was out there for a couple years, and I was just not. I was still teaching, and for me, because of my athletic background, I had an awareness that I don't think I would have had, where I was like, okay, I got into the advanced class where I was studying, so I was able to do the intermediate-ish class for free. That was the deal the guy had. If you're in my advanced class, if you come to my younger class, I won't charge you. It just makes the class stronger, which is a kind of a cool policy. Yeah. And so I was able to work 2 nights a week doing that. And then I would get an audition here and there. But I just started to realize I'm only acting 2 days a week, and I really want to be doing this 6 days a week. I want to work all the time and work my muscles and really get my body to where I feel like it's a strong instrument. And I started looking at graduate programs. And actually, what really convinced me to go was one of the teachers at this place, Paul was his name. Said I just hadn't seen him in a while, and he said, "How you doing?" And I said, "Good. I'm thinking about going to graduate school." And I was expecting him to say, "No, stay, train here,"
Yeah.
And he said, "Why do you want to do it?" And I said, "Because I want to act 6 days a week. I want to do this all the time. I want to focus on it. Right now, I'm a tennis pro who acts a couple nights a week, and I'm exhausted all the time."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Sounds smart to me." And it wasn't, "Hey, let me sell you my school." It was, "Go do it," And it really made me go, yeah, it is smart. That is a practical choice that I need to do. And then I went and actually took a year off. I was also dealing with some clinical depression. I didn't know what was going on. So I had all kinds of things going on. But I took a year off. I taught tennis in Florida. I saved money. I auditioned for graduate programs. I stayed down where my parents were in Florida.
Yeah. And you took a year off of tennis? Is that what you're saying?
No, I took a year off of the business.
Oh, the business.
Yeah, I left LA because I was like not feeling productive. I liked LA, but I just didn't feel like I was moving forward at the rate I wanted to as an actor.
Right.
And I left LA, went down to where my parents were, and just said, "Hey, can I just stay here and say this?" Is how cool my parents were. I was 27. Can I just stay here, save money? I want to go to graduate school. I'm going to teach tennis, and I'll get a job, and I wanted to pay them a little rent. And they were like, "We'd love to have you here. We miss you." So I stayed there for a year. My brother was down there now, so I got to hang out with him some. And I just stepped away from the business, which I needed because I was fried. And then I started looking at graduate programs, and I just saw these programs that I was like, wow, to get to train in all these things, movement, voice, acting for 3 years, it didn't look like school to me. It looked like fun.
Yeah.
I was like, I would be so fired up to learn all of this. I want to grow. I want to learn. And then I auditioned for all these places, and I got into like 3 or 4 places. But my first choice was Carolina because they taught Aikido to their third-year actors, and there was all these interesting things. And I was like, wow, they're going to show me how that relates to my acting. And I was an athlete, so like a lot of that stuff was really interesting. And then as I got close to time after all my auditions, they emailed me, or they think they sent me a letter, or they called me or something, said, "You're on the short list. We want to let you know." And they're not allowed to tell you they're accepting you until a certain date or something.
Yeah.
But they can tell you that you're on their short list, and that's their way of saying you're going to get in. And then, so I said, "Should I come visit?" And they said, "Yeah." And then I went, and when I visited, that's where I met, on top of meeting the movement guy, who I'm still a huge fan of.
Craig,
he's
right?
Craig Turner. He's out in Burbank now. He just moved, but he's just he's like Yoda. I called him Yoda. Yeah, he's cool. And he's amazing. Yeah, we did a workshop here with him. Yeah. And anyway, so I
that's where you met Joan?
That's where I met Joan. That's what I was about to say, yeah. Okay. So I walked into the acting class to Aude It, and that's where I met the lady who's been my mentor for the last 14 years now.
Yeah.
She's the first female director on MASH and Mary Tyler Moore, we talked about a minute ago.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I got
that's a big deal right there.
It was so amazing. And then I got great acting training from her, and Bonnie Raphael was the voice person there, and she's like thanked in Arthur Lessak's voice book, which, if you don't know Arthur Lessak, he's a major voice person. So I got to work with these people who were just at the top of their field.
Right.
And it was very lucky. And David Hammond, who I learned Shakespeare from, who I think is an invaluable language coach. Amazing. Yeah. So, and Ray Dooley and all the guys at Playmakers, it was just a great place.
So it seems like you got a lot of, every day was like kind of just fun.
6 days a week.
Just fun. Pure
8
joy.
to 11 p.m. Yeah. It was like med school hours, and I was just constently fired up for 3 years.
I could see you like, oh my God. Oh, a new tool. Oh, a new tool.
Exactly.
Oh,
just and you literally like, it was so much information. You get to the end of a year, be exhausted, not realize how much you'd learned. You take the summer, and I'd go teach tennis in the summer and save money. And I'd come back in the fall, and I'd realize, whoa, I'm a different actor. My body's changed. It would start to sink in as I was entering the fall the next year, what I had picked up the previous year, Yeah. But it's a great program. They're great people. They've been getting great reviews lately. I think they're like in the top 15 or 20 grad programs in the country now.
Nice.
Or conservatory acting places to train or something like that.
Yeah.
I saw recently. They're getting
Something
up there
that's legit.
Yeah, very legit. Yeah. If you're looking for grad programs as an actor, like check out Carolina.
Yeah. All right. So when did you start teaching acting?
So I started teaching acting in grad school, actually.
Okay.
They after my first year, I'd been teaching tennis forever, so I had a lot of teaching experience.
Yeah.
And so they saw that, and I was...
That seems like an easy transition.
Yeah, it was for me. It was very... And it's being able to sort of attack acting teaching from the background of being an athlete and a sports coach, to me, is it's a big part of how I teach, because I feel like if I can teach your brain and I can teach your body at the same time, which is what I do when I'm teaching, it really hits home to the actor,
Yeah.
you know, because I go, hey, you're finding this here, now play with this too, and I'm coming at them. You know, one of the coaches I worked with as a tennis player said your brain and your body are two different people, so you got to train them both. And he's like, if you'll train your brain,
It's like drummers, right?
Yeah.
The left and the right brain
yeah,
you're using.
yeah, and it's exactly, and it's like, you know, he would say teach your brain this, and then go teach your body this, and then tell your brain to shut up and let your body do it. And it was like that kind of stuff is the way the coach I worked with at Tennessee Tech when I was coaching. I was watching him, and I'd never heard that approach, and I loved it. And so I'm very much like that. I don't talk about it that way necessarily as an acting teacher, but I teach that way.
Yeah. Did you? Did it come to you, the acting job?
Yeah, well, it was at Carolina.
Okay.
Like two of their grad students, they hired to teach intro acting for non-majors. The grad students teach those classes at Carolina.
Gotcha.
So I had gotten a scholarship and a stipend, and I was so pumped. And health insurance, it was like 3 years of health insurance. It was amazing. And then just the stress of that being on. And then they said, hey, we want you to teach intro. Would you do it? It's an 8 a.m. class that they put in there for non-majors. So the university offered something that could introduce people to it. They didn't have to salary it like everything else. They could have a grad student do it, which was cheaper for them, but it also upped my stipend.
Yeah.
So I was paying my bills in grad school. I left grad school with no debt, which is rare.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I worked my butt off. I taught tennis on Sundays for a half day, and then my third year, I got because I could now, and this is how a lot of this I think can work, is like all of a sudden I've got acting teaching on my resume because of grad school.
Right.
And North Carolina Theater was looking for an acting teacher in my third year, and it happened. They needed it primarily for the 2 days I was off.
Yeah.
So I taught Saturdays until about 1 p.m. And if I was in rehearsal for something, I had to jet over there. But I'd drive to Raleigh, teach till 1, teach 4 or 5 acting classes. And I also taught on Monday nights a little, and the theaters are dark on Monday. So I was never in rehearsal Monday night. So I taught those times. So I was working. What was so funny is I just was working all the time. I was either training or teaching.
Was there ever a point where you're like, or someone offered you a job for teaching acting, but you were like, you know, I'm not ready for that kind of level of acting yet to teach. I need to go through it myself a little bit more before I teach it.
It never really came to me that way. Okay. I think
so everything just kind of flowed.
It really was interesting. Because I love teaching kids. I taught a ton of kids tennis.
Especially coming from like, you know, an intro acting class in grad school to teaching at a theater.
Yeah.
Kind of a difference, right?
Yeah, but I think what I was comfortable about was that it was kids.
Okay.
Because I had taught kids tennis forever, and I am one of them. So that's why I teach a million kids now, and I work with a lot of kids in their careers, and all that is. I think there's a part of me that will never grow up.
That's with everyone.
Yeah,
they just have to unlock it. That's all it is.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I think that's what I love about acting. But the kids keep you in that mode as an actor too. It's a great trade-off.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I got that, and I was really honest about. I was comfortable taking the job at NCT too because I went in there and was very honest about my experience. I said I have a lot of teaching experience from tennis. I've been training as an actor for 2 years now. I got 1 more year before I have my master's in it, and this is the style of acting that I teach. And I said it, and I was like, if they don't dig it, they're not going to hire me, and that's fine.
And what style of acting was that?
Well, it was I said I was really into a combination of like Uta Hagen stuff and Stanislavski stuff. I said I think the personal stuff is very important, and I think the practical stuff is very important, and I think you have to teach both. And some places are a little nervous about teaching the personal stuff. They think they're going to get into stuff. So I was like, I'm going to put that out there, and if they don't want it, they won't take it.
Yeah.
And they called me the next day and they said, we loved what you said about the way you teach. We want you to. And I was like, all right, well, so they like what I'm bringing. I'm not going to worry about it. You know?
Yeah, that's
and
good.
Then that
lay it out on the table.
Yeah, and it ended up being, and I find that so much with everything now is like put it out there, because if it's the right fit, it's going to happen. And if it's not the right fit, it's eventually not going to happen anyway. So even if you BS them and get the job, 2 months later, you're all going to go, this doesn't work.
Right.
And,
the truth is always going to be coming out.
Yeah, it's always going to come out because it's just in the work.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to tell them what I do. If they don't want to hire me, they don't want to hire me.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do about it. And it's going to be better off that way. I'm going to go find the right fit later.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
So you had a good training experience in acting. You started teaching. Did you ever get into the different types of arts, like as far as improv, stand-up? Or taking any classes?
Yeah, I took improv here and there when I was in the bigger markets some.
Okay.
And then the first stand-up experience I had was with Lewis Black, which was amazing and such a great.
How was that? How did you get that?
So I went up to my first real theater experience. This is before grad school. Mm-hmm. My first real theater experience, one of the things that made me want to go to grad school, was I went up to the Williamstown Theater Festival. A friend of mine in Tennessee had been there, Amy Carpenter, and she told me to check it out. And I went and read about it online. It was like the highest grossing summer stock theater festival in the country. Like Gwyneth Paltrow was there. David Schwimmer directed a play there. Gwyneth's mom, come on, Estes, Blythe Danner. Okay. She's an awesome lady. Yeah. She was in a play there that I crewed on, and it was like, come up, crew stuff. You pay a tuition for all these workshops, and I was like, I want to get into stage work and see what that is. And so I went up for the summer, and then in the middle of the summer, surprise workshop, Lewis Black, stand up. If you want to sign up,
that's awesome.
Put your name on the list. And I was like, I didn't know who he was. I looked him up and was like, oh my God, this guy's teaching a stand-up workshop. Put my name on there, got in, and then
was that scary for you?
Petrified. And then I found good material that's very, it's like you talk to comedians, and like maybe the third day in, I found material that landed and was right in my. I found some. I don't know how to explain it except to say that, like, he was talking about some great suggestions on how to find good material, and I tripped over something funny, and it was a 5-minute set, and he watched it on Wednesday and said, yeah, it's hilarious. Do it Friday night. Well, Friday night, he was hosting us in an event, which was amazing. We went to a club. Lewis Black hosted. He was so funny on the fly, man.
Showcase. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And super nice guy. I mean, if you ever get a chance to see Lewis Black, he's amazing. He's funny. He's an awesome guy. And then my love's always been for the stories. And I really enjoyed the stand-up. I'd like to do more of it as I get time, hopefully in this lifetime.
Right.
But
so how was it, like going up on stage, showcasing
it was awesome.
Material?
I had a blast, man. I really did. Like,
nice.
and
everyone
it was,
laughed. You get
it went
no heckles
great.
or anything?
No, I got heckles that were fun heckles. They were messing with me, in a good way. But it was, and I've had harder stand-up experiences just in throwing something out there, doing a minute somewhere. But that night went amazing, and it was a great energy, and the audience was awesome. And
that's awesome. Did he ever like tell you anything, give you any advice?
Yeah.
That you still use today?
Yeah. Oh, it's so many things. That one of the biggest things, the thing I use as an acting teacher all the time, that he said was, he talked about laughter in comedy is based on creating tension and then letting the punchline break the tension. And so if you're really working hard at what the character's working hard at, which keeps you on the right frame of mind as the character also, keep doing what you're doing, try hard, that's going to create that tension, and the jokes are just going to happen around that.
Right.
It's not about telling jokes. It's not about being funny. It's about the script has a joke in it. Play the character and let the joke happen, and it will.
Oh, so it's the same as acting and
stand-up.
So
I would say they're very similar things. I think there's a lot of crossover there. I think the more you go, Lewis is a pro at that. If you watch him, and he gets to doing his thing, and he's getting all fired up. He's building that tension, and then he cuts it, and he's so funny, and he's very witty too. I mean, he writes great stuff. So that's obviously a part of it. But he said great stand-up comedy is the jokes you'd walk up to somebody at a party and tell them. And so I started thinking about, what stories do I tell people that are funny about me or about my life or about what's around me that they think are funny also. Right. And you start to go, oh, wow, I guess that might make good stand-up. I didn't think about it that way. It's simpler than I would have expected.
Right.
And then, so you talked about that, and then He also just, he yes-ands everything. I mean, like, he's not an improviser. I'm sure he has some improv experience. He's mainly known as a stand-up comedian, and he was originally a playwright for the longest time.
Oh,
He
I
was
didn't know
writing
that.
plays, and he said that the reason he became a stand-up comedian, he told me that the only reason that the reason he stumbled into it was that the people who would let him put up his plays were comedy clubs.
Oh, really?
Or the things that he wrote. He's like, the only people letting me do my writing were comedy clubs. And he's like, I started to realize maybe I'm a comedian. And he let the business tell him where to go use his tools, which I think is another great.
Say that one more time.
He sort of let the business guide him. He pursued things, and then the business said, hey, comedy clubs like you. Oh, maybe I need to do comedy. Well, that I think later can take people to all these other things. You have all these things you want to do, and you go, well, I don't just want to do comedy, or I don't just want to do this, or I want to be this kind of actor. And it's like, well, go do the opportunities you get, and that will probably broaden people's confidence in you as an actor or a performer, and eventually you'll probably get those other opportunities. But you can't, it's
I think you will eventually, right? And if you're good enough.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And it's frustrating. I know actors at first are like, well, I've gotten 3 of these jobs. I don't want to keep playing a this all the time. And I go, play it until something else comes, because it's great that you're getting work, or it's great that you're getting out there and you're getting seen and you're getting credibility. And it's like learning to have patience with that part of it. And again, treating it like any other job, because you'll have people that'll tell you, don't do it again, you're going to get typecast. And I go, get typecast. Because then you get known as that. And then eventually you're also going to get other auditions from that. And then then you go be right for something else. And they're going to go, yeah, he's a great, I've played a ton of cops on television, right?
Right.
He goes, yeah, he plays a good cop. And then all of a sudden they know you, so you're in their head as a cop. But then they're looking at something else, and because they know you from the other, they go, "Oh, Estes might be good to play this farmer or whatever."
Right.
And all of a
they'll
sudden
see you in the audition.
Yeah. And that's what takes so long in the business. Is it's not that necessarily. I started to get a lot more television about five or 6 years ago. And I think I, acting-wise, was ready to do it about 10 years ago. But that's my opinion. That's how I felt about my work.
Yeah.
But the business has to
be accepting.
It has to fall into place. Yeah. It's a crazy career, and you just have to enjoy the ride.
Exactly. So, what were the best moments you had during, like, when you were on stage?
Oh man.
Because I know you've done a lot of plays so far.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I used to. I do.
You've done plays with celebrities in them as well.
Yeah.
So was there any, like?
I had.
Let me ask you that instead.
Yeah.
So was there any celebrities that you worked with that surprised you? Oh, they do this or they do that, like, or they do certain things with their acting. Oh, okay. That maybe before a show, how they prep or something like that. Stuff like that.
I remember. That makes a lot of things come to mind. But I got to do a play. It was a reading, like a staged reading. It was kind of half off book. It was kind of half book. That's based on a Studs Terkel book called "Will the Circle Be Unbroken?" And I got to work with David Strathairn, who, if you don't know him by name, like he was in the Bourne Ultimatum. He's like the main bad guy.
Okay, yeah.
He's been in tons of stuff since he was in The Firm years. But he's been
a lot of action films, right, and drama.
A lot of drama. Yeah, he always plays tough characters. He's a great type to play characters that are tough to play. He's a great character actor in that sense, I think, and a great guy. But watching, he prepared very simple. He was always working on his script, like he wasn't goofing around. He wasn't over pushing himself either. He was very relaxed, but you would see him always by himself, just running stuff out loud to himself, and then.
But then you would see other people not doing that.
Right.
And so did you always take in what people were doing and trying it out for yourself to see if it worked for you?
Yeah, or that, and absolutely. And also I would see things validated because you watch somebody who's made a career in it do something simple, like just sit there and talk it out loud. Like, I'm a big advocate of talking a script, not just reading it.
Right.
And to people that are having to get off memorized and get off book and get into the body of the character, I'm like, start talking it while you memorize it. Let it encompass your whole body as you learn it.
Right.
Because you'll learn it differently and you'll process it differently. And I used to watch actors who I thought, wow, that guy immediately just knows what he's talking about. He's not reciting lines at all. He just knows the point, and and he's in it like that.
Yeah.
And I was always like, how do they get there? Because I still feel like I'm remembering lines, and it really started to make me focus on how am I learning these lines? How are they going in the tank? Because they need to go in from a physical perspective more than a memorized thing, you know? And so I watched David.
Is that what did it for you?
That's a lot of what made me start to try to process that way, so that it was connected to hear and hear, my brain and my body.
Yeah.
And then like watching David Strathairn, like he would sit in the corner and I just watch him and he'd go, and he'd be talking his lines and just saying, you know, and then I'm going to go to the restaurant and I'm going to talk to her there. And I just would watch him talk them and listen to them. And he would hear the play as he was reading it. It wouldn't just, it was a lot of listening involved in the learning and in the hearing of it and all that I go, wow, you're really getting more information if you do it that way in different ways. And then,
That's interesting.
yeah. And he's just a super nice guy. And he was, I mean, what's so funny is you get nervous to talk. You know, all of a sudden I'm doing a job with a guy who's been nominated for an Oscar and I'm freaking out. He's nominated for Good Night and Good Luck. He played Edward R. Murrow in Good Night and Good Luck. He's nominated for Best Supporting Oscar. I'm freaking out and I'm just not talking. I was very quiet in those situations because I didn't want to open my mouth and be an idiot to somebody who I had a lot of respect for.
Right.
And I'm sitting at a dinner break and we were in Top of the Hill in Chapel Hill, which is a bar, restaurant, sports bar kind of place. He came over and sat down next to me and said, I heard you're a tennis coach. And I said, yeah. And he goes, my son's playing tennis and I'm trying to help him find the right things. And he talked to me for an hour and a half. And I ended up really getting along well with this guy. And all of a sudden he's not a celebrity anymore to me.
Right.
You know,
it's just another person.
Just a nice guy,
yeah.
You know, and a great actor. And so that really changed. I was on stage, really getting to work with him on stage, kind of doing this. We were both doing monologues that were kind of interspersed, so we were building off of each other, talking out to the audience. But it was this really cool connection that I was really pumped I got to have the experience of.
Yeah.
And then
That's
probably
awesome.
the best play experience I've ever had was Tuesdays with Morrie. I did that at Playmakers. And I knew, I was lucky to know while I was up there that it's probably going to be one of the coolest theater experiences I ever have in my life.
Why is that?
Well, I got to work with Joan, who was my mentor now, and she's won Emmys as a director, and she's just a brilliant director. She knows how to help you connect so personally to a role that really teaches you what in-depth character work is in a way that I think is a hard thing to get all the way. It's what takes 20 years to learn craft-wise. But it was her and a guy. She had directed a series called Mary Hartman in the 80s in LA that was a spinoff of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And the guy who played the main dad, the patriarch on that show, it was a two-person play, and he was the other actor I was working with. So they had already worked together 25 years ago, and I'm getting to do this play with them. So I felt, wow, I lucked out and get to do this small cast play.
Kind of like an honor.
It was such an honor and a privilege and a learning experience, and we just had the best time, the three of us. And it was like it was a rehearsal where it's not a 20-person cast; it's three people. Yeah, you come in and we worked slowly. We worked what are the moments. We learned what is the play about, and if there was something that I wasn't connecting to personally, we had the time for her to really not just direct me, but teach me as I got to work in a professional play, which is why I'm shooting a short film in a month with some of my students. And I'm really looking forward to teaching them on a professional set also. Right. Because I really feel like that's the thing. I've been teaching them all this craft for years, and this is where I'm going to be able to go now. When it's happening, this is how you incorporate it. And that step is so important, and it's a hard thing to do with acting because getting a budget to shoot something or to put on a play or whatever's got to go.
It takes a lot.
It takes a lot.
So then you started Moonlight Stage Company.
Yeah, which is why I don't do as much theater now, probably, because I'm running this place. But
how was that? Like, when was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it?
Well, I finished grad school and I signed good agents in New York, and I went to New York. Yeah, and I did some jobs up there. I was there for about 3.5 years, and I loved New York when I was working, but I grew up in not a big city. And I still love New York when I'm working, right? But and Los Angeles, but like the constant stimulation of the city. I lived for 20 something years, almost probably 30 years before I was really, really there. And literally I had thyroid problems from living in the city. Like my thyroid they were telling me I might have to get it taken out. There's all this stuff going on. And I was like, I think this is stress related. And I moved back to North Carolina and my thyroid was normal in 2 weeks.
There it is.
Which is crazy. Yeah. I have a very physical response to stress. I think it's part from being an athlete for so long. There's so many things. But
I think a lot of athletes have physical response.
Yeah, they have physical.
Because I have the same thing.
So kinesthetic, yeah. And but so that was part of why I moved back here. And when I moved back here, I had it was such a slow start for me because I'm very left brain, right brain. So I was always a stressed actor the first 10 years because I was like, I want my bills to be paid. I don't want to have to worry about that while I pursue this. And I had these two sides of me. How do I make a living? How do I pursue my acting when I really just want to dive into the acting all the time? And so I came back here and I was like, I'm going to create a place that I one day want to create kind of a school where all the teachers are professionals and we can all cover each other. We can all help each other out. We can help each other grow. All the things that now are awesomely happening at Moonlight. But I was thinking about that when I moved back in 2000, about 7 years ago.
Okay, so that was the goal.
Yeah, so I started. I was actually teaching at the conservatory some when I first came back. They hired me back there, which was great, and I got started kind of doing that. And then I also started my own studio, and was also working with the DP that I'm actually working on this short film with, Trip Green. We shot the feature,
Right.
And he and I started doing commercials on spec. And we actually we shot 8 commercials in a year and sold 4 of them to major brands, which was lucky and amazing and made us go, hey, we can do this. We should do more of this. But that got me started. That got me that, and I was getting a lot of work in commercials down here as an actor.
Yeah.
And that got me off the tennis courts financially. And I was I was hitting that mid-30s phase where I was like, this is where I wanted to stop doing this.
Right.
Lucky timing. There it is. Your universe, whatever you asked for, you put it out there.
Yeah.
And I got a job that paid me, it was a great rate. It was a job that I got in February, I think. And I was like, the minute my agent called me, I was like, okay, I'm going to start phasing out of tennis now. That's it. And Trip and I worked on shooting commercials for the next year, and I started coaching more and teaching classes out of my studio.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I had 6 or 7 classes, and I looked around, and I'd been here for 4 years, and I knew the core teachers that I wanted to hire or that I wanted to do this partnership with.
Yeah.
And they were all around me, and I all of a sudden looked around and went, wait, I think I see the group of people I need to do this with. Time to do it. So
nice. Were you ever like in a rush to like, come on, when is this gonna happen and stuff like that, or did you just let it come naturally?
Yeah, I think
because a lot of people tend to rush things.
Yeah,
and just get upset because it's not happening.
Yeah, well, and for me, I started to look at. I always had that. The first 10 years I was an actor, I dealt with a lot of that, and I started to have to really look at really why are you rushing? What is it about the rushing that makes you want? Why do you want it to move along? And I was like, well, I don't want to teach tennis much anymore. I want to be done with that. I don't want to bartend all the time.
Right.
And I had to really. I think you go through phases of learning. Well, what am I getting from the bartending? How can I use that to be productive time? Or teaching tennis, what can I focus on that I really feel like helps me continue to grow, even though I feel like I know what I'm doing out here. And I think you have to check yourself in those areas constantly to keep enjoying the work. How do I enjoy these kids and appreciate?
Yeah, I'm always constantly checking myself, making pretty much just looking in the mirror and saying, what, I think you're full of shit. Are you doing everything you can? That's a big thing for me is like, am I doing everything I can to be happy, to be successful in the long run?
Yeah.
And so,
exactly. and learning, what am I learning from this, or what can I be learning from this that I'm not learning because of my attitude towards it, or even with. As I got coaching acting a lot more, I started to have actors book a lot of big jobs. I've had actors that I coach book bigger jobs than I've ever done.
Right.
And I've had days where I'm like, wow, that really is a hard pill to swallow sometimes, because you really guided this person from your expertise that just got a bigger job than you've ever gotten. You have to go, wow, man, how do I? And what I had to really do with myself is go, this isn't your acting. This is your directing training. That's what you're doing over here when you coach. You're being a director. So put that hat on and do it. And then learn from it. And the thing you get, the thing I also learned as my acting grew was that I was acting all the time, being a reader for somebody. Like if you're an actor and you're not acting a lot and you can be a reader, you have the opportunity to be a reader for somebody, like go do it, get your muscles worked. Yeah. I play characters, today I have a shorter day coaching. I think I'm coaching for 3 hours today, but I'm going to be acting for 3 hours. I'm going to be playing characters across the camera. I'll be off camera, but man, I'm analyzing
just
scripts.
Working that muscle. Did you notice that earlier on that taping and teaching acting is going to be helping you in the directing part?
It's sharpened me like a razor blade from doing it. I mean, Craig Fincannon is one of the biggest casting directors in the Southeast, cast Walking Dead and
et cetera, et cetera.
Et cetera, et cetera, forever since the 70s. Like they cast Dawson's Creek and One Tree Hill. They were the big studio, the casting office at Screen Gems that started it all down here.
Right.
And now they cast like 10 shows, major shows. And he said to me, I was in there for a callback. I had to go in person for a callback. And he said, and his wife was there, Lisa Main, and she complimented what I was doing for a lot of the youth actors, which was really nice. She said, what you're doing for these kids is awesome. I said, thank you, I'm loving it. And he said, and then Craig countered it and said, and it's really sharpened your own work.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, wow, man, well, look
that,
at...
like validated.
Yeah, and it's like what you're giving away is coming back to you even when you don't know it. And to really learn to embrace that part of life, which can be hard sometimes because you got to give and give and give.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you look around and go, I'm actually getting back everything I'm giving to people, just because that's the way the universe works.
Yeah, that's what teaching does, right?
That's what teaching does. I think if you use it right, if you're open to that.
So you started Moonlight Stage Company. So far, so good.
Yeah, yeah.
It was the 5th year. No,
it's we're going into the 4th year now.
Going into the 4th year.
We've been happening 3 years. We have 180 students. We're starting to produce
almost 30 classes.
Something like somewhere between 25 and 30 classes on acting and improv and stand-up comedy and music and songwriting and vocal performance.
Yeah.
And I want to in the next year or two add voice and movement to that.
Nice.
Because those are a slower bowl. You have to have more committed actors that realize, I need to take voice for my acting.
Yeah.
First they go, I just want to take an acting class, man. What are you talking about? And you go, listen, your voice is part of your instrument. If you tune it and learn to play all the notes, it's going to color. It's like, why do you think these guys on films are so colorful with their voice and their body? Because they train it all.
Yeah, and an example of that would be like a student who yells but talks both at the same level. So it's like monotone and stuff like that.
And learning how to yell without raking your throat and making a sore throat, and learning how, for men, I notice they naturally are lower pitched. They don't use the higher pitches of their voice, which
that's a big deal.
Yeah, when you watch a great comedic actor, if you're a comedian and you're not using your upper register, like I guarantee you can tell the same joke and go high pitch, and all of a sudden it's getting a huge laugh that it wasn't getting because you're panicked and you're a guy freaking out talking like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's something that all this training, dialects, really learning what makes a good dialect is more practical than we realize. It's not just being able to be talented and do a dialect. It's break down what are the sounds that you can learn to sound like you're British, to sound like you're Hispanic, to sound.
And all these things just complement one another as far as articulating.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. They all help you. You'll be better at something over here because you went over here and took a voice class. You're going to go into your scene study class and something's going to work better. Yeah. Or you're going to do movement and learn all these things that are amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome, man. So then you created a film called Changeover while you were creating Moonlight Stage Company. And
crazy.
Yeah, you made it happen though.
First feature. We survived.
First full-length feature.
We survived. Yeah.
How was that experience from the beginning of Changeover compared to when are you finished?
Well, I think it's still going.
That's
when
why
you
I
finish
added
filming.
Yeah.
We're still working on putting it out.
Let me say from the beginning of Changeover to when you finished editing.
Okay.
The film.
Yeah.
What's the comparison there? Like,
well, we
was it what you expected?
In ways, much harder
Mm-hmm.
in ways that I didn't expect. And at the same time, like the learning curve, if you like, basically Tripp and I sat down one night at Tribeca Tavern, which is no longer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
And we were having a beer after we had sold another commercial. We sold a commercial to Hasbro. No, to Walgreens, and we made good money on it. And we decided, okay, we're going to get tired of doing commercials. We want to do stories.
Yeah.
And we said, let's make a feature no matter how much money we raise. Even if we raise $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000, let's make a feature. We ended up raising about 50.
Nice.
Which was to me at the time a lot of money that goes like that when you're making a movie.
Yeah.
And is ultra low budget or whatever.
Right.
Just because there's so many things that go into it. But he and I did it for nothing, and we put all the money into the film. We started fundraising in February. I think I raised that money in 6 weeks, which was crazy.
Wow.
And here again, you want to talk about where giving back is. Like a lot of parents who I had worked with their kids, and their kids were more confident people because of working on their acting and working with the studio, and because of sometimes jobs they'd booked, things like that. I had parents who wanted to give back who were some significant contributors to the film. I also had people that just loved the arts, that were good people that I had. But some of my biggest donors were people that I had taught their kids or worked with their kids, which
I'm not
wasn't
surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised because what you're doing is providing value. You're giving so much value to their kids and their parents.
And you don't realize, like, I wasn't hounding them about money. They offered it. I was shocked at how easy some of that came
because of the value you're providing.
Because of they were excited about the opportunity to give back, which you don't think about. I hate asking for money. It's sometimes the nature of the beast with the arts, but God, it's not fun. It's the thing you don't ever want to ask anybody.
Yeah, especially for someone who's artsy and creative and stuff.
Yeah,
that's a lot. Money was probably the last thing they're thinking about.
It's the last thing they're thinking about. Yeah. So we raised this money, and then we started shooting May the 15th. One of the biggest shots we had to have the most extras, was what we had to do the first day because we had to use a cemetery that was the right location. They let us have it that day, and it had been nice weather up until the day we shot. It was 98 degrees, and people were having to stand at a funeral in suits. I had a kid throw up. I was horrified. Oh, no. Poor kid. And it was in a wide shot, and we didn't see it till after we shot it. And we watched at the end of the shot. We go, oh my God, he threw up. And I was like, dude, go sit down. Are you okay? And he goes, no, I want to stay in it. And he was white as a sheet. I said, no, go sit down. Drink some water. And I said, if you feel better, come back. But I don't want you to pass out. That would not be good for you, for the film, for anything. Right, it's not good for anybody. And
don't want the stories getting
I just felt so bad. He was such a nice kid. He wanted to do a good job. He was afraid it was going to make him. And I said, listen, I think you're awesome for even trying to be standing up in this. I was a tennis player. I passed out before. I know what it feels like. But so we shot that. And then we basically shot over the course of, I scheduled it 4 days on, 3 off the first 2 weeks, because I knew I was going to run into new problems, things I didn't think of because I was a new director.
Right.
And I was really glad I felt very smart about doing that later, because it gave me 3 days to physically recover from the 15-hour days, 4 in a row. And I took a day to sort of get some sleep, and then I would have to crisis manage the next 4 days in the 3 days I had. Well, then the last 2 weeks were 6 on, 1 off, which meant you have to crisis manage while you're directing. And if you are on a low budget, you have a smaller staff. All these things are overlapping. That's the hard part of it is. Right. And I also had something like, God, I don't know, 700 lines or something like that in the film myself. So I was like, and I had actually
first directing, and then
and then I'm jumping in doing the scenes, and you kind of got to do that for a lot of reasons. You're trying to get the film made cheaper. You're a free actor who's qualified and trained, and you know that you can ask that of yourself. You can't always ask it of everyone else. I was able to pay the actors like $100 a day. We did the low budget stuff, which was nice to be able to do. Right. And I had a lot of younger actors, so to them, 3 weeks at $100 a day is $2,000 or whatever, and they were like, "Man, that's a lot of money for me." Yeah. And I was like, "Awesome, that's a good deal for a 17-year-old actress who played my lead." And another kid who played a big sporting role, Carter.
Now, this is a story that you created yourself.
Yeah, I wrote it.
So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about Changeover?
Oh, yeah. It's a feature drama about a kid who loses her. It starts with a kid who's having a flashback. She loses her parents in a car accident while she's in the back seat. So she goes through a major trauma, and then obviously loses her parents and has to go all of a sudden live with her uncle, who's in his late 30s. He's a tennis pro with an 8-year-old it's the first time I was able to incorporate the tennis in a movie the right way. Like tennis isn't a movie sport. It's not fun to watch. In my opinion, every tennis movie I've seen, I'm like, it's okay. Or it's horrible or whatever. But tennis is a very minor part in the film. It's just his job. He's a teaching pro, not a circuit pro. So,
Right.
But it created the right dynamic of, excuse me, of, hey, we have this middle class guy who's working hard to make a living. He's got an 8-year-old. He's a single dad. And all of a sudden, he's got a 17-year-old girl dropped in his lap.
Yeah.
Who's
You have to
having
deal
mental
with
health issues. Yeah. Comes to find out she's dealing with a lot of PTSD from the accident. She has a lot of rough stuff happen in the film. And the movie's sort of about those two finding a way to help her have hope for her life after something that feels like it's
the
a
end
dead
of the
end.
world.
Yeah. And so the movie is it has a very positive message.
Mm-hmm.
Deals with a lot of hard things that has a very positive message.
It's very relatable to a lot of people.
I think so.
Honestly.
It's a lot of based on a lot of the depression I went through, and I wanted to write something positive about it and put something positive out there about how do you what I've learned feedback from a lot of the people who've seen the movie, and they say, well, this is a great movie to see. I had a guy, you don't think about that when you write it, but I had a guy who was in the audience in Birmingham. It screened in Birmingham at University of Alabama, Birmingham.
Right.
And there was a guy in the audience who, at the Q&A, raised his hand and said, I'm so glad to have seen this movie because I'm dealing with somebody who's going through all of this, and this movie showed me how to deal with them.
Interesting.
And it made me feel so good because I was like, wow, I wasn't consciously thinking about doing that when I wrote it. But yeah, this character has a lot of patience. And if you're going, it's written by somebody who went through it.
Yeah.
So knowing what that other character needs to hear is in the writing in ways. So it's a movie that if you're dealing with somebody who's got some clinical depression or mental health issues, it's a good movie to watch to see how do I
especially
relate to
the
this.
youth.
Yeah.
Having clinical
It's so
depression
common in teenagers now. We see it at the studio all the time, like kids going through stuff. And Changeover's been a great thing because they come talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Because they've seen that and they go, Estes will understand this. I'm gonna, and then they talk to me and I can hopefully help them.
Yeah, and that's why they say, like, write your truth.
Yeah.
Write what you know.
Write what you know. Absolutely, 100%.
As long as it's the truth, it'll come out, and a lot of people will relate to it.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
awesome. Very
Absolutely.
cool. How
Thank
many
you.
awards does Changeover have now?
Oh gosh, it's doing good.
It's more than 10. I know that, right?
I think it's at like 14 maybe.
14 awards?
Something like that.
Man, I feel like it's more than that.
I haven't actually counted. I know it's above. I know it's in the teens now. I think it's around 14, but it's done great in the festivals, and it's finishing up its screening in Spain in October. That's I think the last one I'm gonna.
So where can people find Changeover?
Right now, it's on a platform called Flix Premiere, which you can get on Apple TV and Roku and smart TVs. It's an app. It's called Flix Premiere, FLIX, and then the word Premiere. And
I'll put it in the description below.
Yeah, and it's all indie film, and it just went subscription based, so it's only $5 a month. And there's a lot of cool. It's a platform that's really trying to focus on lower budget indie film. They have a jury, so it's high quality film that was made with not a lot of money.
Right.
So that's really what they're trying to. They call it democratizing film. They're trying to create a platform that helps these lower budget films get out. So
that's cool.
So it's on there now, and it may. We're also looking at doing more with it on iTunes and stuff like that eventually.
Okay. Cool. And if you want to find out more about the movie, it's changeoverfilm.com.
Yeah, changeoverfilm.com. You can see the trailer. You can learn about the film a little.
Cool.
All that.
Very cool. So what projects are you working on now? Because I know you got a couple of things going on. So what's up?
And well, my strategy is to put a lot of different fishing baits in the water and get a bite, but which I think is good for filmmakers. But I constantly keep creating new projects while I'm trying to get other ones made. So I have right now 3 features that are sort of, I would say, looking for funding / in development based on people that I've met through Changeover and other projects. And that's another great thing about making a feature if you're a young filmmaker, is making that stuff will even if the film is new and doesn't get out there in the way you'd hoped, you're going to meet people from making it that connect you to more in the industry.
It's always a stepping stone, right?
Yeah. And actually I'm working with a producer now that worked on Changeover and is now producing more, and they really like Changeover, and so they're trying to help me get some other things made. I have a project that it's called Mrs. Wildermuth. It's a dark comedy about a woman who's kind of a vigilante who's like 85, and it's like a dark-haired Betty White, and it's kind of a caper. It's like the Dukes of Hazzard meets Arsenic and Old Lace. And
Nice.
there's a great movie that Maggie Smith was in called Keeping Mum that I think is a very similar genre. That's a great movie also. And then I'm also working on a feature that we're trying to get shot in Brazil. That's a sort of a family-friendly coming-of-age journey about a girl that has to go to Brazil to meet her grandma, who she's never met, and her mom has passed, and so she goes there and with her dad, and it's sort of a quest to break in grandma kind of film. It's got a lot of humor in it. It's a drama, but it's got a lot of humor. It's kind of it'll be a fun family kind of movie.
Right.
And then we're also shooting a lot of web series that you're in, and that we're doing that's sort of through Moonlight, but may not be a Moonlight Stage Company product, but it's
a branch off of it.
Yeah, it's sort of affiliated. We're Moonlight's sort of trying to be more of an artist liaison kind of place where it helps a lot of people make things and is a facility where, that we've created that also gives us an opportunity to do the things we want to do. So, so that's what we've been building, and so we've shot an episode of one of the things we're about to put out. 3 or 4 different web series is that is stuff we've done in the sketch shows live at Moonlight. It's been a lot of fun, and we're gonna.
Yeah, those shows are amazing, by the way.
Very fun, very fun. Shows. And Oliver's in a handful of movies, hilarious. But if you haven't been to one and you're in the area in Raleigh, come check out. We're gonna do the holiday sketch show. It's not till December, but it's been a lot of fun, and we had an insane show last year. But a lot of the stuff that we write that we also go through in our writers development group that we do every other Thursday in the fall. It's material that we develop there, and then it goes into the sketch shows, and then also we're now starting the process of building sets here and shooting a lot of that to put online. Also, which I'm hoping also people see the online stuff and then will also want to come see it live and just want to grow the live theater aspect of that too, because it'll make it a known quantity. We'll be like, oh, let's go see a play at this place we never heard of.
Right, it complements.
Yeah, and they'll see it online and go, oh, this is fun. It's a lot of Saturday Night Live kind of genre stuff, I guess.
Yeah, but more raw.
More raw.
I would say more raw than SNL, and it's not. It's like there's no borders. I feel like there's no borders. Like SNL, you have to worry about being family friendly and stuff like that. But with the adult sketches shows that we do,
it's going to be a mix.
It's more of just pure raw.
And we'll probably have both.
But eventually.
But it's a mix. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Absolutely.
Any other projects you're working on? I know you're working on something with your student, right? You mentioned that before.
Oh yeah, we're shooting a short film in October called The Birds and the Bees, which is about a 12-year-old who goes on a quest to find out what that's all about, and it should be really funny. And we're going to get to use some of my, I call them students. They're all working professionally now, so they're pros now, and so we're going to have a mix of those guys, and I'm going to direct that. And Audrey Jones is a student that I work with who's 12, who wanted to put together a project, and she's funding that. So if you want to help a 12-year-old fund her journey through this short film and produce it, it's at We Fund Women. Is where it is. It's called The Birds and the Bees, and I have a link to it. You can see a picture of the poster we did.
Definitely. I'll leave that in the description below as well. Very cool, man.
Awesome.
So you're working on all these projects.
Yeah, crazy. Class starts in 2 weeks. So
starts in 2 weeks.
I teach 5 classes, so we're going to be
You cut it down, though. You cut it down.
I cut it down, too, because I'm trying to start. I really feel like the way I can benefit Moonlight the best is this business is so hard to get started in. And I want a place that not only trains you, but also has an outlet to get some of those first jobs, or I have an actor who's doing amazing work that doesn't have any credits on their resume. And we go, hey, we're going to use a name for this, or actors who have a lot of experience over here. But this part, we need a new face. We need somebody who's capable and ready to work professionally. Like I want to be able to give those opportunities to our students here,
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so I'm now trying to cut down a little of my teaching to start building this place that'll eventually be a bigger benefit.
Yeah.
So that students go, wow, if you go to Moonlight, you can also hopefully get involved in some of the professional stuff that we're doing as well, so that it bridges. I mean, I was the only actor in my family So I didn't know the business at all, and I stumbled around for years trying to understand how do I get started in this, And so I really try to make Moonlight a place that will help. I think all of
understand
us
that.
help you understand what those steps are, how to do them, how to move through the unknowns, how to make the unknowns knowns in what we do.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much what you achieved.
I appreciate it.
I mean, yeah, it's always been a place where you could come in and create your own thing as well, and learn from your experiences here and take it on the road, doing your own thing if you want to.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast.
Thank you, man. It was fun.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it was.
Enjoyed it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Where can people find you? They want to contact you.
On the Moonlight site, you can go to the teachers page, and there's a little under all of our teachers. If you have any questions for a teacher at Moonlight,
that's Moonlight Stage co.com.
Yeah, moonlightstageco.com, and then you go to the teachers. You go under classes, and you'll find a teachers link. Click teachers, and under each teacher's picture, there's a little envelope, and you click the envelope, and an email opens up, and you can email them. So that's a place to contact me. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and.
Under what?
Oh my God. My Twitter is I think my Twitter is just Estes Tarver. I'm gonna tell you, that's terrible that I don't know that.
Hey, I had to find out my own.
Yeah, oh my God.
As well, so I can definitely understand
Twitter,
that.
at Estes Tarver.
Okay.
ESTESTARVER, and then
your Instagram eTarver111.
Yeah, my Instagram is eTarver111 because I'm the third.
That's what it is. I never really asked you that question.
Yeah,
before.
that's what it is.
Right, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Very cool.
Excellent.
Keep doing what you're doing and rock it
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thanks for the time.
Let me ask you one more question, then we'll end it.
Yeah.
If there's someone that is wanting to get into acting but isn't really has a lot of questions or doubt or restrictions, they feel like they have restrictions, what would you say to them?
I would say go get in a class. Go start knocking down the walls that are creating fears that might be, and I think though all of those fears usually are more physical than we realize than mental. Meaning, if you go get in a class and you learn some practical skill that will take you, it's like anything. It's like, say you wanted to build a wall and you're scared to build it. Some guy comes in and goes, "Hey, measure this, do this." Knock a nail in there, you have a wall. Like you start there. And I would say, like, find a class that's meant for young actors. Don't feel like you can't take an intro class because you're serious about it. Go take that where a teacher is going to know, hey, I need to walk you through these steps so you know what you're doing. Take the time to do that, and as long as that class is productive, take it. And then as you outgrow something, move on. But I think go make it. It's such a hard business because of the unknowns. So go make the unknowns known. Find a class that looks interesting to you, even if you're freaked out about it. Find a class that you go, well, I'm still a little freaked, but this looks interesting to me. If I wasn't freaked, go take it. Yeah. And if you want to do it, there's a reason inside of you that you want to do it. There is ability there that is what's guiding you to it. So don't think that you don't have the ability to do it. Get in there and find out what your strengths are, not what they aren't.
And if you are considering taking classes at Moonlight Stage Company, I know that you could contact the teacher and talk to them, and pretty much all of the teachers are willing to have you sit in and just watch if you want to.
Come watch anything,
before you even decide to sign up or anything like that. So keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah, and you can get on the mailing list on the website, and you'll see when our shows are and the things we're doing. If you want to just come watch something, we're doing our first full length. I should have said that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Moonlight's doing its first full length drama in the end of September, the end of this month, coming up fast. But it's a wonderful play. That's one of my favorites, called Seascape with Sharks and Dancer. And it's going to run for 2 weeks, which is our first 2-week run of a play.
That's a 2-person play, right?
Yeah, it's a 2-person play. It's about a girl and a guy who kind of has to take her in out of a strange event, and then the play's got a lot of humor in it. It's a drama for sure, and it's got adult issues in it. And I would say to me it's like a 16 and up audience. It's got a little bit of language and some adult issues, but it's a really neat play. Author's name is Don Nigro. Yeah. And I'm directing it, and then Sean McCracken is one of our actors, and Shay Wixon, very talented people. that are doing a great job. So
Very cool.
I'm really looking forward to.
That's
seeing
awesome.
that.
I'll definitely leave the description to the link.
Yeah, link
for
the
the
tickets. Tickets are already on sale. You can
Very
go.
cool.
It's under $20. Not expensive.
Yeah.
And
it's here at Moonlight Stage Company.
yeah, it's a really cool venue to see a drama because it's a 43. If you have never been there, it's a small black box. So it's kind of to me, it really is like a mix of theater and honestly theater and film in that way.
Yeah.
Is you really get to see very intimate theater in a way that in a big space. For this kind of play, it's a really good space for the play. In a big space, bigger shows are more fun. In this kind of space, like the kind of drama that we're doing, it's a very good fit.
I think I would say that the black box that you guys have it really makes everyone just engage on the stage, where like everyone is just one and just watching.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which is
Absolutely.
amazing about it.
I love the space. It's a very simple space, and when you come in, you're like, "Where am I?" The building doesn't look like a theater.
Yeah.
But then you walk in and you go, "This is cool, man."
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good secret.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you,
And
man. Thanks for having me. This was great. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Until next time, guys. Thank you so much. All right.
Awesome, man. That was cool, man. Very cool.
It was an hour 35.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Holy mackerel. That's amazing.
You talk too much, man.
Yeah, right? That's amazing. It goes faster, man.
It does go faster.
It
Yeah.
really does.